Hello and welcome to my lecture review for the CompTIA Security Plus SY0-701. This is a Pearson VUE textbook, which is the cert guide to CompTIA Security Plus. This is written by Lewis Herman, ISBN number 0138293082. So I'm going to be doing lecture reviews for all of the individual chapters. It is imperative that I point out a few things. One of the big ones is, first of all, Pearson VUE owns all copyright of all of this material. All I am doing is I'm taking their official PowerPoints and I am providing my own video lecture for courses that I teach that use this book. Again, Pearson VUE owns all rights to this material. All I am doing is taking their official PowerPoints and providing my own video lecture. So with that said, let's jump in and let's see what we can do. Chapter 2 is about summarizing the fundamental security controls. So in this chapter, we are looking at the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA. We're going to be looking at non-repudiation. We're going to be looking at AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. We'll look at gap analysis, zero trust, and to a certain degree, defense in depth, physical security, and deception and disruption technologies. So these are the key areas for this chapter. Alright, so let's start with the first one, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Let me grab my pen. Basically, when we deal with anything within security, we go back to this triad. And the nice thing is, we normally want a nice balance. If we move in any one direction, we get away from the other areas. So if we go confidentiality, we do move away from availability. If we move in the integrity route, we move away from confidentiality and availability. So we do need to figure out a balance here. So what do these three categories mean? Confidentiality is the ability to maintain or safeguard data from unauthorized access and disclosure, i.e., only those that are authorized to read it should be able to read it. Confidentiality. Integrity ensures that data remains accurate and trustworthy throughout its life cycle. If you're sending an email, for example, can you verify that your email was not modified in transit? That is the integrity, and we normally do this through hashing. Confidentiality through encryption. And availability ensures that system and data are accessible whenever those that are authorized to access it have the ability to access it. So availability is, again, ensuring that whatever system or data is needed is always available to those that are authorized to use it. So non-repudiation. If we are looking at, can you repudiate? Can you say that I didn't do that action? Non-repudiation ensures that someone cannot deny the validity of something. So, for example, I didn't rob that bank, and then we produce a video of you robbing the bank. You cannot deny the validity of the video. So, if I send you an email, and it came from my email address, and I'm the only one that knows my username and password, and we assume it wasn't spoofed, it's really hard to repudiate that I didn't send the email. So this is a legal concept widely used in security for providing proof of the origin and the integrity of said data. Digital signatures are commonly used to provide non-repudiation for digital communications. We also have our AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. Authentication is verifying that you are who you say you are. And we can do that through something you have, something you know, something you are. You know your password. You know a PIN number. You have a debit card. You have some type of token. You are your fingerprint or your iris scan. So multi-factor authentication normally is 2 or 3 of these 3. Once you've been authenticated and you are able to provide the validity of your identity, what can you do? That's authorization. What actions are you allowed to do once you've been authenticated? And then accounting is tracking and recording all of the activities that you've done. A bank statement, for example. You go to the bank, you put your debit card in, you type in your number. The debit card, something that you have. Your number is something that you know, that's multi-factor. Once you've put it in the ATM and they authenticate you, then you can look at what you're authorized to do. Can you withdraw $1 million? Probably not. You might be authorized to withdraw $500. When you withdraw that $500, everything is tracked and logged. You logged into the ATM. You withdrew money. All of that builds a statement. And at the end of the month, you might get a bank statement showing all the transactional records for all the actions that you've taken. All right, so moving past this, we have our gap analysis. This is the strategic planning tool used to identify and evaluate differences between the current state and where we want to be. So, our gap analysis looks at current, ideal, or desired. So we're here and we want to be here. How do we get there? So this helps us to identify, pinpoints the deficiencies in our appropriate measures and metrics. It does not matter if it's technology, software, training, enforcement of our policies, whatever the case may be. Our gap analysis helps us to identify where our deficiencies are. This allows us to address and close the gaps. So we have 2 main types of trust concepts: defense in depth, and that means we have layers of protection, and we have zero trust. Zero trust is a security concept centered about not trusting any entity or device by default. You have to verify that you have to authenticate. This allows access based various known factors rather than relying on the blanket inherent trust. We do this through establishing trust through a mechanism like AAA, authentication, authorization, availability, and validation of our security posture. But this is all built upon authentication. We have to have a way to identify you. So we have a few different planes that we have to review for zero trust. Our control plane is adaptive identity. It helps us reduce our threat. It is more policy-driven access control. Once you authenticate, then we have to see what you're authorized to do. So these are more policy-driven. They are more zoned-focused. You can now have specific zones or scopes of access because of the way that you handle our initial entry. There's a policy engine and a policy administrator. They kind of help build our threat scope. Our data plane are the subject and systems, our enforcement points, and the implicit trust zones. These 2 planes help build up our zero trust. And again, the counter to zero trust is getting away from that defense in depth and moving away from the inherent trust that is there by default. Moving on, we have our physical security. Bullards, barricades. So when you pull up to a road and you see the little yellow pipes coming up, those are bullards. Access control vestibules, fencing, lighting, surveillance, security guards. These are all physical controls. Sensors and all the subtypes of sensors. Lighting. Actually having a well-lit facility is a deterrent. It is a physical security control. All right, moving past that, we have our deception and disruption technologies. Deception technologies involve using a decoy and traps to be deceptive, misleading of the attacker. We also have our disruption technologies. This involves the techniques and tools that disrupt or impair the attacker's ability to execute malicious activities. So, some examples are honey files and honey pots, honey nets and honey tokens. If we have a decoy, we might have a honey pot. We might say this is a decoy network with miscellaneous traffic. That way, the attacker thinks they're getting real information. In reality, they're in our honey pot. Honey files are files created to serve as bait for a potential attacker. Again, more of a decoy, so that the security team can understand what's going on. A honey pot is a decoy network or system segment, so basically allowing the attacker to trap the potential attacker so that they see what's there. That does mimic a legitimate system to lure the attacker in, thus allowing security to monitor and analyze their behavior. That way they could figure out a countermeasure. A honey net is a network of interconnected honey pots for other decoy systems designed to deceive and trap the attacker. This provides a comprehensive way to learn the attacker's tactics, techniques, and procedures by simulating a full network so that the security team can monitor what the attacker is doing. Then we have our honey token, and these are pieces of fake or fabricated data placed within a system or network to detect unauthorized access or activity. They serve as an indicator of compromise. IOC, indicator of compromise, alerting the security team to weird or suspicious behavior. They are designed to appear legitimate. That way the attacker goes after them. Alright, that's it for this module. Key terms: confidentiality, integrity, availability, non-repudiation, AAA, gap analysis, zero trust, threat scoping, security zones, policy enforcement points, bullards, physical controls, CCTV, honeypots, honey nets, honey files, honey tokens, and so forth. Thank you. Alright, that wraps up this module. If there's questions, concerns, or issues, please feel free to reach out. Remember, I'm here to help. All you have to do is ask questions. Thank you.